the first thing we did in this entire unit is we graphed. We graphed in three forms. We graphed in standard form, we graphed in vertex, and we graphed in factor. So this standard form, you know it is in standard form if it looks like this. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. The a tells us two things. The a can get us points. It also tells us if it opens up or down, correct? Positive opens up, negative opens down. Okay, now I have added something to this that we did not do when we first graphed. When we first graphed, we found the vertex, we found the axis of symmetry, we found the y-intercept. I did not care about the x-intercepts at that point. We just kind of sketched and moved on. Remember that? I now care about the x-intercepts because we now know how to find them. We now can solve and go from there. So, we need to find, oops, that could have been bad. We need to find the vertex first. Here's how you find the vertex in standard form. It's the opposite of b over 2a. And then you're going to plug it in. So I would suggest if you don't remember that, you write that down. Opposite of b over 2a, and then you're going to plug it in. So if I need to find my vertex here, my b is 2, so the opposite, my b is negative 2. So the opposite is 2. Divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. So that gets me an x coordinate of 1. What I do with that is I now plug it in. So you're going to take this 1 and plug it in your equation. So you're going to have 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 3. So 1 minus 2, which is negative 1, minus 3, which is negative 4. 1, negative 4. I'm just going to go ahead and graph it. There's my 1, negative 4. Should this graph open up or down? Should open up because A is positive. Okay? Axis of symmetry. When we first quizzed on this is something that a lot of you missed points on. I don't want that to happen this week. Axis of symmetry is always x equals an equation. Always x equals. It's always your x coordinate of your vertex. In this case, that is 1. Okay? Y-intercept for standard form is the easiest one in my opinion. It's always 0, comma, c. Always 0, comma, c. So in this case, 0, negative 3. Now, how to find the x-intercepts? You find the x-intercepts by setting your equation equal to 0. So it's like solving. We have 4 different ways to solve. Square roots. Can I use square roots here? No. Factoring, quad form, or completing this square. I'm going to tell you not to don't complete this square. So you either factor or you quad form. I don't care which way you do it. But if you're going to quad form every single time, that's completely fine. But understand that might take you a little bit more time. Remember, if you want to see if it can be factored, remember that discriminant b squared minus 4ac? If that equals a perfect square, your equation can be factored. Kind of went through that beginning towards the end of last week. Okay? So, if I want to find the x-intercepts, if I do b squared minus 4ac, so that's 2 minus 4 times 1 times negative 3. That's 16. Is 16 a perfect square? Yeah. Yes, so it can be factored. So, I'm going to factor it. I'm going to set my equation equal to 0. Yes. This is the easiest way to factor. A is 1, C is negative 3. What multiplies to negative 3 that adds to negative 2? Huh? Careful. Multiplies to negative 3, adds to negative 2. Negative 3 and 1, right? So you would write x minus 3 times x plus 1. That's in factored form. Yes, is everybody with me here? What do I do with this to get my value? Set equal to 0, flip it. So this becomes 3, 0. Because you would get x equals 3. This one's going to get you what? negative 1. So you graph those 2 points. 3, 0, negative 1, 0. How many points must you have on a graph? At least how many? At least 3. You should have an odd amount. 3, 5, 7. Probably not 7. There's a good chance you're going to have either 3 or 5. How many points do I have graphed right now? I have 4. But I need to have an odd amount. This one has a matching pair. Does this one have a matching pair? Does that have a match? No. How do I find the match? That's where you reflect it over that axis of symmetry. So we would have said it was 1. So we have to go over 1 more again. There's my 5 points. I connect them with a nice U shape. Connect them with a nice U shape. What does D stand for?
Domain.
Domain. What's my domain? Negative to what? Positive. That's your domain for every single quadratic function. Nobody should miss that this week. R stands for range. What's my range? Negative 4 to what? Infinity. What goes around that negative 4? Why is it a bracket? Closed dot. What goes around my infinity is always a parenthesis. Okay? We did that almost a month ago. Is that crazy? It's been a long time.
I swear it was.
It was. What?
I think it's so much harder. I think I just forgot.
Because you haven't done it in a while. All right. Let's go. The we do. Opposite of B over 2A. So I'm going to write a little V here. The opposite of B. What is B right now? 12. So the opposite of 12 is? So negative 12 divided by what? 2 times A. So 2 times 3 is 6. So that equals negative 2. How do you find the y coordinate? Plug it back in. So I have 3 times negative 2 squared plus 12 times negative 2 plus 9. Whenever you square anything, what happens? It becomes positive. So this is 3 times 4, which is 12, minus 24, and then add 9. Yeah? 12 minus 24 is negative 12, plus 9 is negative 3. Negative 2, negative 3. Axis of symmetry. What? Axis of symmetry, what is it? Careful. X equals negative 2. Don't lose points on that. Don't forget that x equals, okay? Y-intercept. Y-intercept. 0 what? 0, 9. Always 0, comma C. Okay, x-intercepts. How do you want to find them? You got 2 options. You're either factoring or quad forming. Tell me. Factoring. Okay, if we factor, what's the first thing we should always look for when we factor? GCF. Do I have it? So find my x-intercept, set equal to 0. Do I have a GCF? What is it? 3. So I have x squared plus 4x plus 3. Ladies and gentlemen, does this 3 affect my x-intercepts at all? No. You should have only 2 x-intercepts because that's your degree. So this 3 can kind of go away. Because that 3 is like a multiplication factor, right? Could I have divided by 3 and it goes away? Same thing. What multiplies to 3 that adds to 4? 3 and 1. So x plus 1, x plus 3. Agree or disagree? What's my first x-intercept?
Negative 3.
Negative 3, 0. And?
Negative 1 and 0.
Negative 1 and 0. Negative 1, negative 3. I have 4 points on there. I need to reflect this over. So it's 2 and it's 2. That's a really bad connecting of the points. It's okay though. What's my domain? Negative to positive. What's my range? -3 to positive. Standard form. There she is. There she is. Okay? You'll do the other one for homework tonight. Flip it over onto the next page, please. Vertex form. Vertex form is this. Y equals ax minus h squared plus k. Ax minus h squared plus k. The A still tells me opens up or down. My vertex for vertex form is h comma k. Do we remember what we have to do with the h though? You have to flip it, right? So currently it's -2, right? Right? So what is actually h in our case? 2. So our vertex is 2 what?
-4.
2 -4. Only flip the h, don't flip the k. So 2 -4. Axis of symmetry is what? X equals 2. Y-intercept. I don't have C anymore. So that's how you find your y-intercept. Plug in 0 for x. Plug in 0 for x. So if I plug in 0, I'll have y equals -3 times the quantity 0 minus 2 squared minus 4. Just plug it in 0. Make sure you plug it in for x, not in for y. So if y equals -3, -2 squared minus 4. So this becomes -12 minus 4, which is -16. So my y-intercept is 0, -16. There's a problem there. What is it? It doesn't fit on, well, actually too small. Just to be annoying. Doesn't fit on my graph, right? Doesn't fit on my graph. So we have to talk here. What direction does this graph open? Up or down?
Down.
It opens down. So if it opens down, am I going to have any x-intercepts?
Nope.
No. So do not put 0 here. You have to write none. If it's not going to hit that x-axis, then you're not going to have any. So how do I find my other points then? Use that a value. My a value was what? -3, right? So what does that mean? That means I go down 3 into the right 1 and then reflect it over. This part of the graph right here, kiddos, that better not cross over that y-axis. You better not bring it this way because your y-intercept is all the way down here. So make sure that's true. What is my domain, please? What? Negative, positive. Negative to positive.
Wait, how's it positive? It stops.
It doesn't stop.
No.
What do you mean? Here? You mean this side?
Oh, wait.
Because it's going to keep going. It's going to go over there. It's going to take a while, though. You're okay. Range. What's my range? -2, -4 with a bracket. These are the ones that you liked a little bit more, if we can kind of remember that far back. Okay? Does everybody have that? We write a rock? We do. Here we go. What is my vertex? -5, -3. -5, -3. Axis of symmetry. X equals -5. How do I find my y-intercept? Plug in 0. So I have -2 times 0 plus 5. The quantity squared minus 3. So I have -2 times 25, and I'm going to subtract 3. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 53. Clearly doesn't fit. Open up or open down? Down. So are you going to have any x-intercepts? Absolutely not. Make sure you put none. None. Do not put 0 there. So how do I find my other point? Use your a value. So I'm going to go down 2 and to the right one. And then reflect it over. Domain. Negative to positive. Every single one of these is negative to positive for domain. What about my range? Negative 2, negative 3 with a bracket. Do we remember vertex form? Okay. We go with vertex. Okay. Last form. Factored form. Y equals a x minus p times x minus q. APQ. 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 Vertex. P plus Q divided by 2. And then plug it in. P plus Q divided by 2 and then plug it in. What's P? It's 3. It's just like that H. You got to split the sign. So it's going to be 3 plus what? 1. And then divided by 2. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. How do I find my Y value? Plug it in. So I'm going to have 2 times the quantity 2 minus 3 times 2 minus 1. So I'm going to 2 times the quantity negative 1 times 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Times 1 is still negative 2. So there's my point at 2. My vertex, I should say. 2, negative 2. Axis of symmetry is what? X equals 2. How do you find your y-intercept?
Plug 0 in.
Plug in 0. Whoa, geez Louise. Plug in 0. Hold on. Give me a second. Sum of y equals 2 times the quantity 0 minus 3 times 0 minus 1. So that's 2 times negative 3 times negative 1. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Times negative 1 is positive 6. Should it cross the x-axis? How do you know that? It opens up, right? Ladies and gentlemen, is that in factored form already? Yes. These are the ones you're like, thank gosh, I don't have to factor, I don't have to do anything. It's already in factored form. Because you have factor, factor, factor. Does this 2 affect anything? Does this 2 affect anything? Nope. What's this one going to give you? Positive 3. And positive 1. 1, 3, 2, 2. Domain. Negative to positive. Range. Negative 2 to infinity. Do you think you can do the other one of those for homework tonight? So I don't want to kind of waste time. Are we good with that? So right now you have 4 problems to do and that's it. We're going to do... Sorry. He almost fell right over. Okay. All right, here we go. Now, here's where I need you to make sure on Wednesday and Thursday. Oh, one thing. Don't ask me what's on each day because I'm not going to tell you. You know exactly what's going to be on your test. I'm going over it. I will not tell you. You're going to figure out when you take it. If it says factor, stop once it's factor. If it says solve, you got to keep going. But if it says factor, just leave it alone. So, one thing. This is factor by grouping. I need you to change this to a positive 100y. I apologize, I typed it wrong when I did it. Change that to a positive 100y. Whenever you're factoring, either by trinomials, by grouping, whatever, what must you look for every single time first? You have to look for a GCF. If there's a GCF and you don't pull it out, it's not factored completely. You will not get full credit. Is there a GCF in this first example? Yep, I can pull out a 5. So if I pull out a 5, what is left over? So 8xy minus 6x plus 20y minus 15. Is everybody with me? How many terms do I still have? 4. If you think that's a lot, you're going to be in trouble next week. 4. How do I factor with 4 terms? Group it. I do the thing, right? So the 5 still comes. What's my GCF of my first group? 2, 2x. And I'm left with 4y minus 3. What does Coop tell you to do here? Divide negative 15 by negative 3. So that's positive 5. And then you have 4y minus 3. Should those things in parentheses be the same? Do they have to be the same? Yes. So your final answer is going to be your GCF on the outside with your other 2 factors. Yes? What goes in my first parenthesis? 2x plus 5. And what goes in your second? 4y minus 3. Okay? All right. Next one, what am I looking for? GCF, do you have one? What is it? Say it louder. It's 3. I can factor out a 3. Are you kidding me? How many quarters are in 75 cents? 3. I'm gonna assume that we can do that. Okay? So we have 25a squared c minus 15a squared d minus 10bc plus 6bd. 4 terms, yes? What do you do? Group. Bring down the 3. What's my GCF in my first group? 5a squared, and you're left with 5c minus 3d. 6bd divided by negative 3d is negative 2b. So I have 5c minus 3d. GCF, factor, factor. What goes in my first group? 5a squared minus 2b. And then 5c minus 3d. Okay? All right, now, I'm going to tell you this. You have to be able to factor in this room. I know a lot of you relied on quad form to be able to get your zeros on Friday, or on Thursday, or Friday, whatever day it was. You got to be able to factor. That is something that in every single math class, it is an essential. It's an essential. Those of you that you're all going to take pre-calc next year, you're going to have to factor. Okay? And you're going to have to figure out a way that works best for you to factor so that it kind of comes quicker. Because I did a lot of factoring on Friday. I did a lot of help on factoring on Friday. We kind of got to kick it into gear a little bit. So whenever we factor, what are we always looking for? GCF. First one. Do I have a GCF? Yes, I'm going to factor out a 2. And then I have x squared plus 3x minus 54. You can't do quad formula here because you're not solving for anything. I mean, you could. You just have to go back a couple of steps. But you need to think, what multiplies to negative 54? One thing I'm not quite sure if some of you remember. The only way you can multiply to get to a negative number is by a positive and a negative. You can multiply to a positive by 2 positives or 2 negatives. But if this is a negative, one has to be positive and one has to be negative. The other thing that I started to notice on Friday is your GCFs just kind of started disappearing. I don't know if that happened because you were looking at your neighbor's paper and they didn't have one. And you're like, oh, I got to get rid of it somehow. I'm going to tell you right now, I look at your work really, really, really hard. I feel like I do a really good job of giving you partial credit. So stop looking around and just do what you need to do. Okay? Cannot lose your GCF. So, what multiplies to negative 54 that adds to 3? What? Close. 9 and 6. Okay, so we have 9 and we have 6. Which one's positive and which one's negative?
The 9's positive.
Why?
Yeah, because 9 minus 6 is 3. Then 9 times negative 6 is 54.
So my thing is, I always look, is my middle term positive or negative? If it's positive, my bigger number is positive. If it's negative, my bigger number is negative. I'm not asking you to solve this, so you stop right there. Don't do more work than you have to on Wednesday or Thursday. Next example, what do I need to look for? GCF, what is it? 2. So I have x squared plus 11x plus 30. So when I multiply, I'm multiplying to positive 30 and adding to 11. If they're all positive, everything has to be positive. What multiplies to 30 that adds to 11? Positive 6 and positive 5. Does it matter the order for which your factors are in? Absolutely not. Okay? Next one. GCF. No. This is where we're starting to struggle a little bit, and I want to make sure you understand AC method because it makes it easier. Bring down the first term. Bring down the last term. Multiply those two numbers. 3 times 4.
12.
12. What multiplies to 12 that adds to negative 8?
Negative 6 and negative 2.
You got it. Negative 6x and negative 2x. From here, you should be set. Because what do you do from here? Remember, you got to multiply this number and that number. It's always A times C. It works the same here, guys. Listen. It works the same here. What's A here? 1 times negative 54 is still negative 54. You're always multiplying A and C. It's just now your A is not 1. Okay? So I need a group. What is my GCF of my first group? 3x. And I'm left with x minus 2. Divided, I have negative 2. And then x minus 2. Am I finished? Nope. I have to have two factors right next to each other. 3x minus 2 and x minus 2. Yeah? Second one. Is there a GCF? Nope. First term. Last term. 5 times 12. 60. What multiplies to 60? That adds 19. Just go straight down. 1 and 60, does that work?
Nope.
2 and 30.
Nope.
3 and 10. 3 and 20. Oops.
Nope.
What goes next? 4.
And 15.
4 and 15. Plus 4n. Plus 15n. What do I do here? Group it. GCF of my first group is n. So you have 5n plus 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 5n plus 4. 2 factors. What's my first factor? N plus 3 and 5n plus 4. Okay? Now, here's the deal. The next piece, I graded 50 quizzes from Friday. I wrote plus or minus on 40 of them. I warned you, you gotta have plus or minus when you put a square root.